Federal government inaugurates steering committee for long and medium-term national development plan. Crude oil prices drop below $40 a barrel as COVID-19 caseloads approach 27.5 million. Demand for credit by households increased in second quarter of 2020. And on the global scene, European markets bounce higher as Nasdaq futures rebound. The program is Business Express on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, the NTA, and we're reaching you from Abuja, the nation's capital. I am Moplang Dakok. We're so glad to always have you tuned to Business Express. Now, solving the challenges of power and enhancing alternative energy, as well as considering a gradual switch to digital economy, are some of the major thematic areas of focus for the long and medium-term National Development Plan. Minister of State, Budget and National Planning, Clem Agba, revealed this during an inaugural meeting of the National Steering Committee for the National Development Plan of the country in Abuja. Chumobi Walter Naji reports that the National Development Plan aims at diversifying the economy, reducing poverty, creating jobs and wealth while ensuring infrastructural development. The request for secured lending of credit by households for house purchase has increased from 0 to 3 points by second quarter of 2020. Lenders expect demand for such lending to decrease in the third quarter of 2020. This was disclosed in the recently published Central Bank of Nigeria's Credit Conditions Survey report for second quarter. The proportion of secured loan applications approved decreased as lenders tightened the credit scoring criteria for second quarter 2020. Demand for all lending types increased, but in the third quarter 2020, only prime and other lendings to households were expected to increase, while buy-to-let lending would decrease. Household demand for consumer loans rose in the second quarter. Using cocoa and oil palm cultivation as pilot, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations is initiating a land use and restoration program to promote sustainable food production practices in Nigeria. Let's join Onengie Fineface for this report.
Over-exploitation of land and its resources do not only deplete the resources, but also degrade the quality of the ecosystem. As Nigeria strives to actualize food security, sustainable land use and landscape management becomes imperative for sustained food production.
Into massive agricultural
Conversations at this Inception workshop, courtesy of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations in collaboration with the Global Environment Facility, are centered on the best ways to use land resources to produce food in a sustainable manner.
The project will therefore take into consideration the inherent potential of the Nigerian rainforest, which is classified amongst the biodiversity hotspots in the world.
The focus of this phase is cocoa and oil palm production in Cross River and Ondo states as pilots for food systems, land use and restoration program funding in the Niger Delta region of Nigeria.
We are really promoting the climate-smart agricultural practices among our smallholders farmers,
and at the very same time, repositioning the environment for the sustainability of our continuous existence.
Our technical session of the workshop will articulate best practices for land use and sustainable food production in Abuja on NTA Fine Face.
Planning for a post-COVID-19 era is on the front burner of global economy. The Nigerian Economic Society is converging on the cyberspace for its annual conference, no thanks to the virus. African Continental Free Trade Area is the focus, and so this edition of Business Express will in a moment be looking at what next for Nigeria post-COVID-19. Dr. Muyiwa Alaba is a trade thematic leader and member Nigeria Economic Summit Group, NESG. He joins me to do justice to the topic. Thank you very much for coming on Business Express.
Thank you so much for having me
today.
Yeah.
Okay, so can you tell us how timely is the AFCFTA in view of the COVID-19 and other peculiarities like falling global oil prices and so on?
AFCFTA couldn't have been more timely than now. As we all see, the sudden crash of the global economy itself, we thought it was something that would be restricted to, the Asia and co. But suddenly we had an inroad which actually brought economies in Africa and the rest of developing world also to their knees. And we see quite well that this pandemic actually really sort of defeated globalization.
Okay.
Which means the global supply chain broke down. The global production line broke down. Countries find it difficult to, to trade within that period. And the greatest advantage at this point is your neighborhood market,
okay,
which is Africa.
Okay.
And before now, Nigerians' intra-African trade may be small compared to the what we are doing to the rest of the world, but we are doing a lot to other countries in Africa. People might say, "Oh, we are doing crude oil," but crude oil is still bringing money. Senegal, their intra-African imports, is majorly from Nigeria.
Okay.
Ghana is majorly from Nigeria. There are a couple of countries like that. Within Africa, Nigeria is among the third largest intra-Africa exporter.
So are you saying it's a blessing in disguise
it's a
for
blessing.
Africa and for Nigeria?
It's a blessing for the countries of Africa,
okay,
to increase trade among themselves.
Okay.
Because if you increase trade among your peers, you have a little bit of derogatory rules of engagement concerning to the rest of, compared to the rest of the world. And then your, market access and market entry can be enhanced compared to the kind of barriers you face in the rest of the world. So it's a blessing in disguise.
Okay, the AFCFTA has come a long way. How would you access the AFCFTA and the Nigerian economy?
Well, this serious area of controversies by many. Okay. And you see, many people argue from side of knowledge. Many argue from side of no sufficient knowledge. Okay. But I tell you, AFCFTA is a blessing to Nigeria. Okay. Because if I'm going to quote some studies. Okay. There is a study that was sponsored by the UKA DFID recently, and it shows actually two series. One 5 years ago done by the Chatham House, okay, Nigerian Booming Brothers, which actually look at the magnitude of trade, informal trade, going on at Nigerian borders. It's so huge. And those are not captured in national statistics.
Okay.
Also, there was a study that finished this year, I think February,
Okay.
which looked at non-oil exports, market access for non-oil exports. And looking at Aba Industrial City, you realize that about shoe manufacturers manufacture about 1 million pairs of shoes per week, translating to 52 million pairs per year.
Wow.
And almost all this volume are being exported.
To
How
Africa or
are they being
outside
exported?
Africa?
The model is this, which they call informal trade, because there's a distinction between informal trade and illegal trade.
Okay.
You know, buyers come from the East African, from Central Africa, and from West African countries.
Okay.
You know, they bring their money to come and buy, change their money at the border to come and buy, and you know that's an export of a sort that is not captured. If you before the pandemic, if you go to Okari in Lagos, you see truck loads of goods that people came from the sub-region heading towards West Africa and Central African and East African sub-region. Huge trade. If you go to Lela, you see trailers taking grains and coal out of the, which means the market outside there within the continent is so huge, and we should actually take advantage of that.
Okay, so do you think that when the AFCFTA comes in full-fledged, you think it's going to you know, account for this informal trade you're talking about?
Well, the government must be purposeful,
okay,
to ensure that this informal trade are formalized.
Okay.
And it's an advantage to both sides. To the government to capture the foreign exchange coming in through this market properly into the economy. The other side is that if you formalize, you are, as a producer, you actually have access to what formal businesses are enjoying in the economy. Because if government is going to give you grants, government will not look at informal trade. So it's an advantage to them. Also, they will be able to meet trade standards in other parts of Africa, because each country sets standards for what you want to come to your country. Although globally or continentally, the standards should be similar. Okay. Yeah, so this being formalized enables you to have real information, real assistance for you to access, you know, continental market and
let's
beyond.
talk about other challenges. What are the challenges you see hampering the actualization of the AFCFTA? Well,
currently 54 countries of the 55 countries of Africa signed already. And I think less than 30 of them have ratified agreements, including Nigeria. Nigeria is yet to ratify the agreement. And if you don't actually ratify the agreement, you are not a member of the state party, which means you are not qualified to sit at the table to take decisions. So if we have 54 countries sign an agreement, except Eritrea that is yet to sign out of the 55 countries, and you have less than 30 of them sitting to take decision, it's a problem. It's a problem for implementation already. So I will implore all countries to, because Nigeria was actually a disadvantage initially. We said, oh, we are part of the negotiation, but we are part of indirect channel of negotiation, because if you do not sign the agreement, ab initio, you cannot sit at the table to negotiate terms. But we say we are negotiating through ECOWAS. It's unlike as a huge country, as a powerful country, to take charge of the agreement and say, this is what you want. Because it is actually better for you to be at the table and be some kind of a kind of disruption than to be making noise outside the negotiating
Let's
table.
hope that Nigeria ratifies.
I hope so, because there is huge benefit. Oh, the producers in Nigeria will say, oh, there will be dumping, there will be this. See, in any policies, there are winners and there are losers. But what are the mechanisms with which the winners compensate the loser. That's what the work of fiscal policy. If fiscal policy is such a way that, you know, it takes from the winners to compensate the losers. If you look at the poultry farmers, for instance, oh, when the border was first, they were jubilating. But in terms of the bird, the chicken they're selling, they are making a lot of money. But most of the eggs that they sell go to West African countries or Central African countries. They are not able to cross the border with that. So it's give and take. We are talking about rice. Rice, what is a booming sector now because of border closure, and we have closed our border now for more than 1 year, if I'm not mistaken. Can we say, because border closure is not a forever thing, it's like a safeguard, or where, you know, you think you have injury, it's like a remedial mechanism to make sure that you protect your people inside the country. But let me ask a question. If the border is open today and rice begin to come in, is Nigeria rice going to be competitive within the space of the time they had to adjust?
That was what I was going to ask you next. How do you see competitiveness playing out?
You see, for me, when you put up barriers to trade, it's legal. It's not illegal. As long as your manufacturers make commitments to do better, so that when the border is open, they are competitive. But have we not gone to sleep since the border closure? Are we putting in place the kind of things that will make us competitive? Can we meet up with standards of what is required in other markets? I know our standard agencies, they are doing their best, but we still need to do a lot more.
Okay, let's move a little bit away from that. The recent hostility by Ghanaian traders to Nigerian traders in Ghana. How do you see such type of behaviors? You know, with the AFCFTA, do you think that we'll be able to meet the target, the aim and the reason for the AFCFTA with such hostilities within the continent?
Well, there's no competitor in the economic or trade space that will not want to misbehave to protect their people.
Okay.
But it depends on your own political leaders, how they are able to intervene to protect you. This has been going on for a while. And I don't expect Nigerian government to actually, you know, take it up to this point. It has been on and on and on. But to be fair to the Ghanaian also, our border closure has hurt them so much.
Before I let you go, all economic policies we know are aimed at, you know, helping development of the country or the continent, depending on where the policies are coming from. So this AFCFTA, how do you see it helping to, you know, tackle the issues of poverty, households, welfare of citizens, and the economy in general?
Okay, the African market itself is about 1.2 billion people, which means you have a market for 1.2 billion people. Okay. The value of economic activities that's going on in Africa is neighborhood of $3 trillion, which means you have, you know, expanse of resources to benefit from. Then, if you are able to reach out to this market, they are closer market in terms of logistics and co, it is cheaper for you to actually access those markets. Also, it is actually cheaper for you to source your inputs from your neighbors. When the global supply chain broke down in China, we felt it here. Because if you look at our trade statistics last year, in terms of import and export and net trade, even our raw materials, we are net importer of raw materials. You know, what we export is 1 point something percent, while we import over 5 point something percent of raw material. The same thing for all the chain of the economy except for oil.
Okay.
So if we are able to source resources cheaply from our neighbor, we are able to
Our
produce
economy will be
cheaper,
better for it.
people will have employment. But if we erect barriers forever, it's not healthy for the economy itself.
All right. Thank you very much. On that note, we say thank you to Dr. Muyiwa Alaba, member of the NESG, for your time with us today on Business Express.
Thank you. Yeah.
Now, profit taking has continued to weigh down prices of stocks in the Nigerian equities market since the start of this week. The twin gauges have declined for 3 straight days to see the all-share index close the midweek session at 25,424.91 points, despite last-minute gains, while equities capitalization ended the session at 13.263 trillion naira. A total of 269 million shares valued at 2.871 billion naira in 4,155 deals were traded. Zenith Bank, FBN Holdings, and UBA were the most active stocks as banking shares dominated the day. Meanwhile, European stocks gained Wednesday, propelled higher by oil companies and drug makers, after it temporarily halted trials of its COVID-19 candidate. U.S. stock futures also pointed to a bounce, with technology stocks leading the gains. Bosede Abel has a breakdown of global market activities.
Global stocks opened mostly negative, affected by various factors in early trading of 9th September 2020. African stocks were mostly low, with Tunisia's Tunidex, Namibia's overall index, Nairobi's all-share, and Ghana's GSE composite depreciating, while South Africa's JSE Africa Top 40 posted gains. Markets in Asia also declined, with technology shares regionally mostly seeing losses. The Shanghai composite slipped 1.86% to 3,254.63. Hang Seng Index shed 0.63% to close at 24,468.93, and Nikkei also declined 1.04% to finish its trading day at 23,032.54. U.S. stock futures rebounded on Wednesday as investors snapped up technology shares that were flattened in the previous 3 sessions, while European stocks advanced as investors looked to wave off the technology-led rout in the U.S. that is putting pressure on financial markets around the world.
Crude oil prices dropped below $40 per barrel as Asia's midweek trading session. The price slide was triggered by the surge in COVID-19 caseloads globally and the US dollar gaining strength. At the time of this report, Brent crude futures were down by 0.65%, trading at $39.52, falling below $40 a barrel for the first time since June. West Texas Intermediate crude lost about 0.73% to trade at $36.49 per barrel. Let's see how other commodities are on the global and domestic markets. We'll now take a time to look at the international currency market to find out how the Nigerian naira is exchanging with other international currencies. And with that, we've come to the end of this episode of the program. Don't forget that you can access this and all previous episodes on YouTube, and you can communicate with us on Twitter. The handle is at NTA News Now. The hashtag is BizX. Do join us again on Thursday by 9:30 a.m. for another package. I am Uplang Dakok saying stay safe.